What is up, everybody? James Jackson here, back again with another video. If you're new to my channel, I do tips, tricks, news, and reviews for the film and video making industry. So if you do like the content here, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you can stay up to date on all the content going forth. And also be sure to check out my Patreon page where we put up new exclusive content up there, as well as content not necessarily tied to the channel, just getting a little bit more of me. But if you do want to continue supporting the channel, definitely head on over there, and you may want to head over there after what I'm going to be talking about in just a moment. So as y'all know, the Canon C70 came out, and it has really sparked the interest of many people, including a lot of photographers, including my friend Gaston Shutters, which he and me have been talking about it for a while, but we decided we would partner up and do a discussion video going over the C70, and looking at it from both a photographer's standpoint as well as a videographer's standpoint. And this was a great discussion and great happening, and I'm so glad my friend Gaston was able to work with me, and I appreciate it. If you haven't checked out his channel, he has a great content there. Definitely go check that out. And if you aren't subscribed to there, definitely go subscribe there as well. So I'm going to put out the highlight portion of that video on this channel here. If you want to see the full video, I have opened it up on my Patreon page. It's there for public viewing. You don't have to be a Patreon to see it, but you can definitely go there, check that out, and head over there and see if you want to see the full unedited. Well, it's edited. I mean, I've edited it, but it's not. But it's the full, like, uncompressed video of me and Gaston just talking about the C70. So definitely go check that out. But without further ado, here's the highlight portions of that video. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and until then, take care. Enjoy the video.
What is going on, guys? Gaston right here, back at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Canon C70, and I have James right here, which happens to be a great cinematographer. He has a lot of experience with Canon. He shoots with Canon, and he's also considering this camera. So today we're going to be talking about this camera from a photographer's perspective that does a lot of content creation, and from a dedicated cinematographer like James. James, welcome to the channel, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Can't complain. Sunday, chilling, ready to go to bed. And before that, we want to get this video out and, have a little bit of a talk about this camera. It's been a lot of buzz around. And, as you know, I've made some videos about it. And I have my concerns about this camera. Obviously, I understand it's a great camera. So let's talk a little bit about this camera, how new, and, something completely different from Canon. What do you feel this camera is going to bring this company to? Do you think that this camera is the beginning of something, or this is just another camera?
I think it's kind of a mixture of both, where it is, I guess, it depends on your perspective. But it can be both. From the people more on the cinema world, this is sort of just another camera. This is for the cinema people that may have either a C500 Mark II, a C300 Mark III, or even maybe a higher end camera, say like a Red, that may want to try to have something that can go into have those, high level professional image quality and functionalities and easy to use workflow, but in a very compact package. But for people that are maybe coming from the mirrorless DSLR world, this is a completely different animal, because while this is, a lot of the features here are things that has been in the cinema world for quite some time, this is brand new for mirrorless and DSLRs. A lot of different things.
It's really impressive, and one of the things that's really impressive is also the price. I've heard a lot of people saying that this camera is expensive, but real legit camera costs, cinema cameras cost money. I think $5,500 for the amount of features that you're gonna find in this camera, because a lot of the features that we are gonna see in the C70 are features from the much more expensive cinema cameras like the C300, C200, of course first, but also C500. And also this camera has a lot of new things that none of those cameras actually have, or some things.
And I would say, even to put it in perspective, Gaston.
Yes.
I own the seat, so for those that don't know,
You're
own
filming
the
right now.
Yeah, I'm filming on the Canon C200. I've been a proud owner of the C200 for about 2 years now. I love this camera. This camera, the C200 cost $7,500 when I bought it. When I bought it, it cost $7,500. So this is coming in cheaper than the C200 when it first came out. And everything about that I've read and researched about it, outside of this camera not having RAW, everything else about the camera is better than the C200. So
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, you know, a lot of people, I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of content creators that actually are buying the C200 right now. Well, not right now, maybe before this camera was announced. And we're not talking about people that are big in cinematography, people that really want to step up their mirrorless camera and they want to get that, you know, we hate that term, but that cinematic, you know, look in their videos. And the C200 was a great camera for, you know, those type of content creator that want a little bit of edge, you know, above everything else that, you know, DSLR mirrorless, you know, still cameras, and get some, you know, some of the features of, you know, cinema. Now, this camera changes that because you can actually get a, I mean, it's different than the C200. Yes, we were talking about that. But at the same time, you get a lot of the newer technologies, you know, especially if you happen to be a still shooter. And one of the things that, you know, I wanted to share in my last videos is that this camera, you know, it's aiming to a much broader consumer pull, right? Because before, you know, any camera release, like let's say the C500 Mark II, for example, that is a camera aimed to a professional cinematographer, someone that does and live video, and someone that knows what it's doing, right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Where this camera, it relates to me, you know, relates to someone like me, or relates to some, you know, some other fellow YouTubers as well that, you know, may film videos like this one, but also may film weddings, may do trips, you know, and they want to step up their video quality. One of the main reasons is that it is the first RF camera, and a lot of us, you know, hardcore photographers, you know, have stocked up on Canon glass, and which is, you know, my next topic that I want to discuss with you. We touched, you know, this topic yesterday. We both, you know, gave both of our perspective, but it is that it's the very first RF camera. All the RF glass that exists right now.
The first RF cinema camera.
I'm sorry, cinema camera. Yeah, of course. All the RF glass that exists right now is full frame and kind of a glass that was dedicated for stills. Now, this camera, you know, promise you, photographer or a hybrid shooter or, you know, cinematographer that happens to have RF glass, that you can actually use that glass in this camera right now and, you know, and get a native experience. And one of the things that I think Canon should have, or I mean, you know, this is more of a wish, but man, I wish this camera was full frame. And I completely understand there is not such a full frame cinema camera right now from Canon. They've been using the Super 35 sensor, and some of the cameras also have a 1-inch sensor like the XC, if you consider that maybe a C or D type of cinema camera. But what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, well, actually, Canon they actually have two full-frame cinema cameras. But they're both EF. So the C700 has a full-frame sensor version of it. And then the C500 Mark II is a full-frame cinema. But this, this is the first RF mount camera, I totally can understand this as people's critique of this camera. The fact that it's a cropped sensor camera in a system that's full of full-frame glass. And I can totally understand why some people may be confused. To that, I say, I think Canon looked at this camera as saying, okay, we want to definitely, I think one of the things is definitely clear, Canon is getting ready to move all of their lineups to the RF mount. And this is sort of I think this is sort of the transitional camera from EF to RF for two reasons. The first being that they announced that they came with this adapter that is going to give you a focal reducer that's going to basically give you almost it's very close to a full frame equivalent look. And so, but that's of course for EF glass. So, but people that have still owned all their L glass, and more importantly, the cinema glass that were designed originally for all their Canon mounts, EF mounts, they can take full advantage of these of the C70 can take full advantages of those lenses.
Of
And
course.
and also I guess it's like in terms of the Super 35, for photographers and people that been used to the mirrorless and DSLR systems and been living in that sort of workflow compared to the cinema world, to which I would say that I won't say crop sensor. Super 35 has been the standard for filmmaking and for video forever. And honestly, it's only
Since
been
film.
it's only been really maybe the last 3 years that full frame cameras have really started showing up in terms of video. I'm not talking about mirrorless or digital, but I'm talking about like cinema cameras. It's really only been the last 3 years. Because keep in mind, Red was really the first to really push like a full frame cinema camera with the Monstro. That was, I guess like what, 5-6 years ago. But since they had that camera came out, they have not made another full frame camera. Every one of their new cameras that has came out since the Monstro has been Super 35. And then of course there's the big honcho Ari, the head honcho, the big name cinema camera company that basically all of Hollywood basically stand by and use. It wasn't until last year that they actually came out with, or at the very least near the end of 2018, that they came out with a full frame cinema camera with the Ari Alexa LF. And then like mid last year, they came out with the Alexa Mini LF. So full frame is really, really new in the video world. But obviously for like DSLRs and mirrorless, this has been like something that's kind of expected. But to your point, I guess I could see for somebody who's made the investment for RF glass, this is kind of a confusing.
Obviously, they have the capability because of the Canon EOS R5, So they have that sensor right there, right? And but at the same time, I understand where they're coming from because, the C300 Mark III and the C500 Mark II, and, those are pretty brand new cameras, And can you imagine right now Canon announcing this camera full frame? I think that a lot of people that would have considered the C300 Mark III probably would have gone directly with this camera, and they would have saved what? That camera's $11,000, right?
It's half the price. It's literally half the price.
Exactly. And subscribers were commenting, about this thing, and at the same time, not everything that we want actually cameras manufacturer can do, because a lot of the times, could actually hurt them financially. And I think that with this camera, this is what happens. They had a Super 35mm sensor. I don't know if it's exactly the same sensor. Well, it's the same as the C300 Mark III.
It is. It's
exactly.
They said it's the exact same sensor.
The 4K DGO. Yeah. So it was easy for them to do it. I mean, they could have done full frame, but I think that this camera is catered for those that actually are gonna expect this camera to be full frame. And I think that, like for example, myself, I pre-ordered the camera. But also, I'm on the fence between the FX6 and this camera because, I always wanted to own a cinema camera. I thought the C300 Mark III was going to be it. And I was kind of like, you know what? Now I have to buy all the EF glass that I sold that I thought I was never going to use to get my RF glass again. Yeah. And I got pretty excited when this camera was announced. But at the same time, I'm pretty excited about the FX6, which is also a camera that is... This one is going to be full frame, and none of these cameras shoot RAW, but I don't care, because for the type of work that content creators like myself do, this is more than enough. The only problem is just all the glass is going to be cropped, and you're going to lose light, and with the EF to RF converter, the focal reducer, speed booster, your old lens actually gets better, and that's kind of like, damn.
Yeah, like I said, I think Canon made a decision. It's like, who was the initial primary market? And for this camera, I think it's for those people who have been in the cinema. Their cinema camera supporters the cinema camera supporters this is their first priority in terms of target market. Is those people that may be looking either for a B camera or maybe somebody has like a 1DX Mark III or still has the DSLR, but people that have that still own all those EF glass to offer a camera that still can give you the benefits, and holding on to that glass will still give you benefit. I do believe Canon will eventually start making crop sensor lenses for the RF line, and let's be clear.
Agree.
I think also the C70 is really going to also push a lot of third-party lens manufacturers to start creating crop sensor lenses for the RF line. So I think Tamron, I think Sigma,
Rokinon, maybe.
yeah, Rokinon. Rokinon still does full frame. I think a lot of, especially their cine lenses, I think a lot of their full frame, if I remember correctly. But either way, I think, look, the APS lenses are going to come for the RF. It's just a matter of when. Since this being technically being the first crop sensor camera to go to the RF mount, this is going to create a wave of people that are going to make, because obviously now there's a need for crop sensor lenses.
One of the things that I want to cover is I want to talk a little bit about the design. You know, the design of this camera, because we were saying yesterday, this camera is heavily inspired on a DSLR. It looks like a Canon EOS R5 and a C500 or C300. Had a baby, and this is what we got. Now we were saying that you were saying that Canon is actually aiming this camera to someone that already has cinema cameras, but at the same time, I think this camera is actually aimed to those people that were afraid from a cinema camera to actually see, what, I can relate with this camera. I can relate to this thing. It looks similar, as what I'm used to shoot. And remember in their commercial, they were showing the camera like in portrait mode, right on the side of the grip. You have a quarter mount, for you to mount an Arca Swift plate.
That was a very genius move.
That was actually a genius, and they clearly show there an iPhone video, and they talk about this camera, being thought for that type of content. So, while this camera obviously is going to have a place in the cinema world, now this camera fills a gap that I don't think any other camera filled before. Especially that content creator that wants to have a dedicated mini cinema camera, like a really mini cinema camera, because this is smaller than the C300, but have all those powerful features, something that's portable, something that you can take out, outdoors without having to lug a lot of gear. The fact that it has a built-in screen, it's great, and it has it on the side. You don't have to mount it on the top, like the bigger cameras. Looking at the shape of this camera, the body itself, if you look at it from the front, it looks like a 1DX, almost.
Oh yeah, and it looks like a 1DX juiced up. I do think they are, especially with a lot of things, like they're clearly putting in things that help people target for social media, which some people have been saying the vertical video is like a trend. It's not a trend. You could probably speak on this a little bit more yourself, but a lot of clients are now requesting, ways to do stuff for social media content, because especially now with the after effects of COVID-19,
oh yeah, everyone wants to be online, man.
Online content is now more and more in demand. So I truly do believe that Canon is smart. First of all, they know where a lot of the industry is going in terms of this.
Exactly.
In terms of this social media and corporate video marketplace. And then, of course, but then you still got all the great qualities that make it high-end, professional, high dynamic range, high quality 4K. You get high frame rates options. There's a lot of great functionalities that make the Canon cinema cameras why people love those cameras, like myself.
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead.
No, so I basically think, I totally agree with you. Like, they are really aiming for people that are really wanting to get into the cinema camera.
Regarding, social media content for clients, put it this way, we actually frame everything just to crop and being able to deliver the same content, upright or, landscape. And, before we didn't even have to worry about that. We would put the video however, but now there is a need. People ask you, people ask you for that content. Make sure that my product, is going to show well when, I upload the video on the 16:9 ratio. And I mean, very smart move from Canon. So, like the 5 top things I like about this camera. The number one thing is going to be, the high dynamic range on this camera. 16 stop of dynamic range. The second thing is going to be the size. The third thing is going to be the amount of features, specifically that variable ND filter.
And I agree with you. The fact that they put it on an RF mount is like amazing, and totally agree with you. This sets. I don't know if Canon's going to regret this eventually, because now they have set up a huge expectation for the RF mount cameras going forward. The fact that they've proven that, yes, it's possible to put an RF mount and put NDs in there. Now everybody's going to be looking for that. And I hope they do be able to deliver that, because it is something that you're right. If they put this on their more mirrorless style body cameras, whether if it's stills or even like more like R5 that are like hybrids, or even I guess whatever the new more video centric cameras that come there, they put built-in NDs on there, like the rest of the industry is like good night.
It's over.
Good night.
It's over, bro.
Good night. I'm sorry. I don't care what you bring. I don't think people really, and Gaston, I don't think people really understand. Because people always just think, well, I could just screw on NDs. And people don't really realize it's not the same. It is not the same as having solid NDs, like that you can just wheel through and just put like a solid ND. Because with variable NDs, you're still dealing with a polarizer that shifts the image. These are NDs that are designed specifically for the camera, so you don't lose any quality, you don't lose sharpness, and you don't have any shifts.
No.
And when you spend thousands of dollars on these RF glass, you want to take advantage of every ounce of that glass. You don't want to have it all of a sudden ruin all this image gone because you threw on an ND. And I don't care like the brands you throw, Tiffin, B&W, whatever. It's not the same as a fixed variable ND.
And I can imagine as, someone that shoots a lot of events and weddings, like in a super bright wedding outdoors, all of a sudden it was cloudy, the sun comes out, and, switching lenses, putting lenses, capping every single lens, getting dust in the sensor. I mean, this is revolutionary for a camera of this price to have built-in ND filters. To be honest...
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off real quick, but I really want to point out, people don't understand how much of a time saver it is. Because it's like if you're to change lenses, well, now you have to screw off the ND, take off the lens, put on the new lens, put on the new lens, where all of a sudden, switch lens, hit the button. Or, oh, shoot, I went from, my ND goes from 1 to 5, and now I need like 7, I need like 8 stops. Yeah. Oh, crap, I got to screw this off, put that back on. Button. It saves so much time. And then also we got to talk about the auto ISO or auto gain. Which combine that with the variable ND, that's really good. That's really good. Not just combine it with the variable ND, but if you combine it with the dual gain output, that is because remember the dual gain output, the noise floor works even as you go up in ISO. It doesn't affect. It's not like it doesn't stop based on ISO. So as you go in ISO, that dual gain output, that low noise floor, is still working. So. For weddings where you're going from like a really dark area to all of a sudden to a very bright area, it's going to be a huge, huge difference. This could be a potentially very, very huge difference in a lot of people's experience with this camera.
What are you going to do with your C200? Are you going to keep in pair with this one, or are you going to turn it into cash, get this one? I mean, what's the deal there?
That is the question. That is the $1 million question, or the $5,000.
You give up raw,
or that is the $5,500 question.
There you go.
I honestly don't know yet. Right now, I am leaning towards selling it. The only thing, literally the only thing that's holding me from full-on selling, like going crazy and just saying, yes, sell it, is raw. And someone who's basically made my entire workflow pretty much raw for the most part. It has it's opened me up to so many different things. It's allowed me to be able to do more creative stuff. You don't need it, but it's allowed me to be more precise with not only the looks I want, but also just making my own LUTs and being able to like make LUTs for other people and sell LUTs as well. Raw is a big reason why I'm able to do that. I'm not saying you can't do that, but it definitely helps when you can just get like the proper white balance, the precise white balance that you need, and then like the proper exposure without you're a photographer, photography first. Like
we shoot
the
raw,
difference
man.
between the difference between shooting raw video and like non-raw video is essentially the same as shooting raw versus shooting JPEG. Anybody that's shot photos and seen the difference between using raw and it's the same thing, and it's a huge difference.
It all comes down to flexibility. Flexibility. You know that when you shoot in JPEG only, you can shoot them both. But if you would have to choose JPEG only, you gotta make sure that you nail it. And with RAW, you have such a wider latitude for grading, for bringing those blown eye highlights, and it's just peace of mind. And I can see like someone like you that shoots a lot and does a lot of events. I'm sure you shoot a lot in bright conditions. Being able to actually shoot in RAW and really bring that overexposure down, grade those tones the way you want it, is priceless. So
let me. I totally agree. Before I lose my train of thought, but that's literally the only thing. Now,
we are the same.
If the C70, if Canon decides to say, okay, we are now, they either work with either Apple and Atomos, or they work with Blackmagic, or both, and basically say, hey, we're going to let you send a signal out, and you can now record either ProRes RAW or Blackmagic RAW. Like, that's it.
That's it. Game over.
That's it.
Then you sell it.
No, not just sell it. No, that's it for everybody. Like
everybody,
like, especially Blackmagic. And like, I guess mainly because I'm a DaVinci Resolve editor. Blackmagic. If they put Blackmagic RAW on the C70, like even though it is way more pricier than the Pocket 6K or the Pocket 4K, I have a very hard time at that point really saying why you shouldn't pay the extra money to get the C70, because the amount of money you would put in for all the accessories you would need to make those cameras up and running is going to equal the price of this camera, and it still offers way more features that makes your time go so much easier. The money you save in time compared to what you put in, even with you don't match the value of the C70, you still come lower. The time you save on this is so critical, especially once you get RAW. But even then, RAW is the only thing that's holding me back, because everything on this camera is better. And I forgot to mention that you can record C-Log, that you can monitor C-Log 2 on the C70. You can't do that on the C200, even though it can record RAWs, which means you can actually use C-Log 2. You can't see it, so you can't know what you're exposing. So right now I'm leaning heavily towards selling it, but I'm not fully.
You're gonna sell
yet.
it. You already said it. You're gonna sell it. You're gonna sell it.
I mean, yeah.
Alrighty, man. So I guess this is gonna wrap it up for today. I mean, we could be talking about this camera probably for 24 hours straight, and we wouldn't cover everything we want to talk about. But really thankful to have you here on the channel. You guys go follow James at his channel. Click on that link right there. He's been doing a lot of reviews of cinema for those that really want to follow a young guy that has been doing it for quite a while. Go check him out. And man, it was a pleasure having you here, and pretty excited about this camera.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you. Exactly. Get everybody go check out my channel. I'm going to have a couple of reviews. I have my R5 reviews getting ready to come out. I'm getting ready to make a review for the Xeon Crane 3S. Now that certain things have came about, but it's been a pleasure talking with you, Gaston. As always, me and you, like I said, as you said, me and you can talk like hours and hours about this. So everybody that follows me, definitely go check out Gaston's channel, Gaston Shutters. Subscribe, follow him. He puts out great, wonderful content. I always enjoy hearing what he has to say, especially from a photographer's perspective. And all I gotta say is, man, what a time to be alive in terms of a content creator. But if you're a filmmaker or a photographer, there is so many options right now that it's going to fill the need of whatever type of shooter you are.
Yeah, I know, definitely, man. So, too many options. So, guys, thank you for watching, and we see you in the next one. Take care.
Take care.